Where's Lurch?
He's in the freezer.
Did you say cool off?
No, I didn't say anything, actually.
It's a shame.
There was a bit earlier on that you missed when I distracted him with the cuddly monkey, and then I said playtime's over, and I hit him with the peace lily.
You're off the chain!
All right, we are kicking off 2021 with episode 190 of Pop Culturally Deprived. For each week, we watch a movie I've never seen before, which is somehow still most of them, and talk about the greater good, the bad, and the crusty jugglers. This week, we're going to be talking about Hot Fuzz on your Nobody Tells Me Nothing podcast.
Happy New Year. We made it.
Happy New Year. We did. 2020 is over.
Clearly, because we're recording this and we know how things go, the end of 2020 has been amazing, and all the ails that we had last year are sorted. It's really difficult, this recording ahead thing, isn't it?
That coronavirus stuff was just awful, wasn't it? Thank God that's
Hope
over.
we get a new showrunner for the 2021 season.
See, this is why I always say that podcasting is time travel, though, because we're recording this in November. Everybody's listening to this in January or, potentially in like 2030 when something's, in our archives. It's just time travel.
You think there are going to be people around in 2030 to listen to this?
One can only hope. I mean, it can only get better from here, right?
We said that in 2016.
And it'll be hipsters who are like, oh, yeah, I really like using an actual MP3 player to listen to podcasts rather than, the holographic mental interface. You've got to hear that scratchy audio. And the lovely voice that you've all just heard, Laura Stuart-Berry, is back to join us for this movie. Laura, welcome to the show.
Hello, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
In November.
In November. Keep the illusion.
Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz.
Yes. Been excited for this one for about 4 years now. But had to watch a number of other films first.
It's one or two.
I was watching this thinking, is Mandy going to watch this film and go, this is why Matthew always goes, yarp?
Yarp.
When I ask him stuff.
I honestly didn't even pick up on that. I didn't. I think right now the best part about us recording this is because I decided not to take notes. You have no idea if I liked this movie or not.
Oh, no, you liked this movie because it's an exceptionally good movie. I'm not even questioning that.
I've just listened to your Shaun of the Dead, and I thought you wouldn't like that, and you liked it. So, well, she likes that, then the Hot Fuzz is a given. Don't disappoint.
All right. Hot Fuzz was amazing.
Right.
It was amazing. I mean, it was so much. Shaun of the Dead was good. Hot Fuzz was exceptional.
Right.
So good. And I haven't even seen Bad Boys 2.
No.
Right. And I feel like you need, and you don't need to see it, but I feel like there's a whole other level of enjoyment I would have had if I had seen it, because I got the Point Break references since we did that on the show not too long ago. Oh, actually, I guess that was like a year ago.
Time flies.
March?
Oh, that was Keanu month. No, wasn't that Keanu month?
That was Keanu month.
Last fall.
Yes.
That was
I couldn't remember whether it was Keanu month or Women Directors month. Many months.
No, that was November. So it's been a whole year since I saw it. But all of the references to that just were amazing and tickled me to death. And there were a few Bad Boy references that I could visually that I could pick up on. And I was like, that's from Bad Boys, right? And, Joseph was watching it with me and he confirmed. And so I was just thinking this had to be just amazing.
Yeah.
If you knew all of the references.
The point of the Bad Boys thing is that Michael Bay action style, the sort of ground level upwards, slow motion, jumping through the air, firing two guns thing. Laura, why are you here talking to us about Hot Fuzz?
Because I was annoyed when you didn't do it for British Month. Because I think it's probably one of the best truly British films, because
totally agreed.
There's loads of stuff that's filmed here. There's lots of stuff that, and also it's not upper class British. It is working title, but it's not Rich Curtis. No. And I grew up about an hour away from Wells, where it was filmed. And so I'm from Somerset, as you can tell by my accent. I've lost quite a bit of the accent. And so it's really interesting. I was thinking about it so I don't want to be insulting any of my relatives or anyone I grew up with, as I now live in London. But it just there's so much of it that's nostalgic. More so for back when I was a kid, because I'm only a little bit younger than Peg and Edgar Wright. I think probably things are not like that now. When I go back and visit, I don't think it's, but there's just things that, things like your bars on your phone going down as you're on the train on the way back. They go straight back up again as soon as you're in a city or a village or what have you, but there's just those black spots. You think, okay, here we go. But yeah, I'll bang on about that stuff later. But yeah, it's just a fantastic film.
Yeah, I think the great thing with it is it's not mocking rural living and village living. It is so gentle with the general thing of it. And you can watch it. I grew up in a village very like this. It has 12 streets in it. Catherine grew up in a village like if this was Catherine's village, her dad would have been one of the people on the committee. It's that just so similar to our lived experiences. And it's not, these people are stupid. No. Mandy, you will have seen this with the way Southerners are often portrayed in American films. Like there is this thing of hillbillies, the incestuousness, the idiocy. Yeah, exactly. This doesn't go that far. It has a little bit of, people are a bit daft and stuff, but just in a British humour sort of way. But it is so, and at the same time, it's beautiful and it's lovely and everyone knows each other and everyone cares and it is a great village to live in. And then it has this just ridiculous plot on top of it. It's wonderful. Great. But in terms of us doing it for British Month, I don't think we could have done this without seeing Shaun of the Dead.
No, I agree.
I think it works better when you're not seeing it as these characters, when it's Simon Pegg and particularly Nick Frost playing these roles. I think. And I'm hoping Mandy will elaborate on her thoughts on that.
I think had we watched them close together, I would have had a harder time separating them. Okay. But watching this yesterday, it didn't even occur to me because it's so different, right? Like Simon Pegg is so versatile, and I didn't realize that. But we also recently started watching The Boys. Okay. And he plays Huey's dad. And that is a completely different role than I'd ever seen him in. Okay. And so that's what I had in my head. And then I started watching this, and it starts with him with that really low action fighter voice, right? And I'm like, is that really Simon Pegg talking? And it was. But the characters were so very different than what we got in Shaun of the Dead that it was very easy for me to, I didn't even think of Shaun of the Dead while I was watching it. But if we had watched them back to back, it would have been slightly tougher. Yeah. I
like this one. Pegg's kind of playing against type. I think before this it had really only been Spaced and Shaun of the Dead, I think, wasn't it, that he was known for? Yeah. So it's quite a change.
And I think he's better here than he is in anything else. He's really good here.
I really like him, Scotty. Yeah. I do like him. Yeah. But yeah, I think he's very, very good here. I also think Nick Frost is good. And
I think I liked Nick Frost better here than I did in Shaun of the Dead.
I actually just listened to your episode before this on Shaun of the Dead to make sure I was up to speed. And I watched Shaun of the Dead this morning because I'd only seen it once before, and I thought, there's probably some kind
Whilst hiding behind a cushion, presumably?
No, I was okay with this bit because it's that kind of comedy.
And it was daylight, you're okay.
Yeah, it's fine. And zombies, I don't think are that scary. I met one maybe, but what was I saying? Yeah, and I really don't like Nick. I'm just Nick Frost's character in Shaun of the Dead. I hate you. Whereas Danny's just so adorable, clueless but adorable, and their friendship's just gorgeous.
It is. When he left the birthday party to go buy him the peace lily, I was like, oh, my heart.
Someone was saying to me on online that originally there was a love interest written for Nicholas Angel, but she was taken out, and a lot of her lines were given directly to Danny. Nice. Which, when you watch it, I couldn't necessarily identify any specific lines, but there's a kind of tone between them. I don't think I'd ever ship them as such, but it's quite an intimate relationship quite quickly. which I think it's impressive they do that, because if you think of Angels, quite rigid to start with, but I don't know, it didn't feel like it happened too quickly.
They were not super clear. Like when they did the montages of time passing, like it felt like more time passed than actually had. Like I was surprised to find out that he had only been in town for 2 weeks when things started happening, because it felt like, because he had gotten close to Danny at that point and you could tell they were friends. And so it just felt like that he had been there longer. But there was a line somewhere in there that said it had only been 2 weeks. And I was surprised. So I think if they hadn't put that line in there, I wouldn't have questioned it at all. It just felt like this is something that evolved over time.
It's a lovely relationship, though. It's so good. And we say this every time there is a genuinely good bromance, for want of a better word. Two guys that's not a love relationship, romantic thing. It's really good. It's so good to see. It's refreshing because we don't get it enough.
Yeah, because they're not normally written very well. Buddy things. It's all still very macho. There might be
toxic.
and there might be a line about, I don't know, their wife died or something, blah blah blah, and then they look into the distance and it's a bit awkward, and then they move on to something else. There's not really much. Whereas here they talk about him being too invested in the job, and Danny's later on his just going along with whatever his dad says, and that I just think it's quite human.
And it works at the heart of it. But then there's all the other characters, and there's a lot of characters, and they all get their moments, and they all get their foibles, and it is slightly sort of Vicar of Dibley. It's that kind of BBC humour, but it works in the film context. You don't need episode after episode of catchphrases and stuff. They're just great.
That's what I love. It's that juxtaposition of this very Hollywood action cop, and then also a thriller and murder mystery. And then, but the setting being this tiny village, and even when it comes to the murders, how mundane the reasons are. There's this amazing elaborate plot that he uncovers, and they say, "Well, no, that isn't why we killed them. It's because of a stupid laugh and the ugly house." Yeah, and I love that mundanity.
I can say I did not see the ending coming.
Okay,
like the actual. I thought so. For the longest time, I thought, well, Skinner's too obvious, but they're clearly setting him up to be the bad guy. And I was like, that's just too obvious, because they're really like honing in on him. And then I thought, well, it's going to be the trolley boy. Why is it going to be the trolley boy? Well, because if you think about movies and the twist that they do, he's the big quiet guy. Of course it's going to be him. Like, there was no plot reason for me to think that. I was just trying to figure out, like, if I were writing a story, what would it be? And so then he was the first one unmasked, right? And so I was like, I knew it. But then we find out, Skinner was involved, and then he chases him down, and then you get the whole neighborhood watch council, and it was like, what? And then Danny walked in, and I was like, oh, Danny's part of it. But he wasn't. So that's good. I thought it was just one person. I had no idea it was the whole freaking neighborhood. It was great.
And it works on rewatch as well, when there's so many things hidden in there that when you know, when you watch through, that you just don't necessarily pick up the first time. It's really
it's not one of those things where they're like lying to you. Like, it's all there. It's all set up if you know what to look for.
And the script is so dense. I mean, everything is a gag or a setup or a callback or... Yeah, it's
but it's not forced.
No, it's very natural, but I started writing down to start with, and I was like, well, there's just too many.
Right. It never wastes an opportunity to do something funny, but it does them in service of the plot quite a lot of the time to keep things moving, to keep it. I mean, even right at the beginning where he's being moved on by the Met Police, and he says, with respect, you can't make people disappear. Yes, I can. I'm the chief inspector. It's like, that's the plot. He's just told you what's going to happen.
Oh.
Amazing.
I didn't even... That's so good, yeah.
I had not picked up on that, actually. That's a really good point.
Okay, I need to rewatch it now.
And this, I think, and it's been a little while, so Laura, you'll be able to tell us even better than this. I think one of the things we loved about Shaun of the Dead was how much they set up as they went through. particularly the Winchester rifle, but there was just lots of stuff you mentioned early on that becomes used again in, it's a gag early on, it becomes a bigger reference later. And I think this film does it in exactly the same way.
Yeah, I think there's more of it in this one. I think there's a lot more, and even like tiny things. I'm trying to think of one now, but it's
bushy
just
beard.
There's so many layers of kind of callbacks and references and what have you, and setups. It's it's beautifully done.
I mean, the big one. I'm going from what we talked about, the Winchester as being the greatest Chekhov's gun, possibly in cinema, and in here we've got Chekhov's swan.
Yes.
That, all the way through, you've got this swan being chased, and a swan can break a man's arm. And then right at the end, the swan goes off and breaks his arm. Wonderful. And that's how you wrap up an action sequence.
Yeah. Did this come out before or after Shaun of the Dead?
After.
After.
3 years?
About that.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 years, I think. Yeah.
Interesting. This was so much better than Shaun of the Dead.
I think it really is.
Yeah. Much more cinematic. The other thing I remember we talked about was that Shaun of the Dead it feels like a TV episode writ large. This feels like a film, mostly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the action at the end goes a bit more into TV fantasy. That's my one problem with the film is the action bit at the end feels like it breaks the characters a little when he suddenly sees the DVD of Point Break and he's like,
"Sir, is there anything I can do for you?"
No. This is something I have to do myself.
And he starts talking like that for the rest of the film.
I think that's actually one of my favorite parts.
Well, and that's what I think the film is made for. The film is made because they want to have a gunfight in Summerfield and in the middle of Wales. That is the whole setup for this. How do we get to the point where we've got people going around with shotguns and hand cannons and all sorts in Wales?
A Tommy gun.
Yeah, exactly.
That was brilliantly set up when he says,
You do know there are more guns in the country than there are in the city.
Everybody and their mums is packing round there.
Like who?
Farmers?
Who else?
Farmers' mums.
Everyone's packing heat. The first people you see, farmers, and who else? Well, farmers' mums. And the first people you see, it's a farmer's mum.
It's a farmer and his mum who has a gun. Oh, that's just beautiful bit of setup. I mean, and it is almost a danger that we can just gush over this.
I thought that's what we were going to do.
How good it's going to be. Well, the thing I wanted to ask you, Laura, is any more of your experience from sort of recognizing the people and the locations? And did it do anything to the area after it came out?
I'm not aware that it did. I'm sure some people go to Wells for that. Like I said, so I grew up about an hour south of Wells. I've been there a few times, but I mean, it's a pretty city. I mean, it is a city. It's the smallest freestanding city in England. Just for a little factoid there, because it has a cathedral, which you don't see because they've actually digitally painted it out.
Oh, really?
Because they wanted it to be a village. So if it had the cathedral. So I've been there, but to be honest, I recognise it as being a town from Somerset. I wouldn't necessarily have said it was Wales if someone didn't tell me which one, because there's lots of pretty little towns, so we didn't really go there that often. But yes, things like, and again, I think this is more of my childhood in the 80s versus particularly what it's like now, but things like the underage drinking in the pub, and it kind of being an accepted thing that, well, they're not far off and it's better they're here than out on the streets. That very much felt like something. Everyone saying hello in the street. Absolutely. Definitely in a village like that, not necessarily like the towns and things, but absolutely.
Because everyone does know everyone.
Yeah. And, so when they're chasing the shoplifter and then it turns out Danny knows him. And exactly where he lives in that. One thing that really made me laugh is the wine options in the pub being red or white. I really remember that. Again, now it wouldn't be, now the gastro pubs and what have you, but that absolutely was something. But yeah, and he isn't even from around here. Is very, very
the classic locals thing.
But again, as you say, I don't think though it was very gentle teasing as opposed to mocking, and it there are things, you know, the whole country bumpkin idea and everyone's marrying their cousins and what have you is, you know, it wouldn't be a particularly fun route to go down. I think they really balance it well. And yeah, I think it shows that Edgar Wright is from Wales. You know, it's what he grew up with, and Peg is from Gloucester, which is because it's set in South Gloucester. I assume that's why they moved it from Somerset, is because of peace in Gloucester. So you know, they experience that, and they have a warm regard for that. So
nice.
Yeah, I just think it painted it really well. And there's always going to be part of me that's really excited to see the Edinburgh Wool Mill side. Because they did keep it in the nostalgia of Summerfield, which, man, it's a supermarket chain we don't have anymore, but that was a proper supermarket chain. And Edgar Wright actually stacked shelves in the Summerfield in Wells, and that is the outside of the Summerfield. So yeah, I don't know. It just, there's a sort of nostalgia for me, I think, with it.
Yeah, because I reached out to one of my closest friends. His wife is from Wales, just the same sorts of questions, and she said exactly the same thing. Yeah, the supermarket has now closed down. There's nothing there. That sort of thing. Apparently, the pub has a lot of memorabilia, even though it's not the pub they used. It was a different set, but they'd like the association with it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
The thing that she did say, and this is, it's got to be said, not an easy thing to do. The accents are pretty good.
Yeah, I thought the only thing I would say, and I can't remember from when I was a kid, but when I go back now, not that many people really have strong accents. There's a few people still have them. In fact, my school friend Vicky, who I grew up with there.
Shout out to Vicky.
Hello, Vicky. She did a PhD on how the accent is changing because it's being diluted.
Okay.
I'm sure that isn't the title. I'm sure it's far more academic, but that was how she explained it to me.
So what is it a thing then? So like we had the two older gentlemen who needed translators essentially.
I couldn't see the view anymore. Was he Mumbo?
Right. What did he say?
He said, "How's his edge?" He only chopped him down because he couldn't see the view no more. Was he Mumbo?
What did he say?
He said an edge is an edge. He only chopped it down because it spoiled his view. What's Reaper moaning about?
Right. Look, I appreciate your position, Mr. Webley, but you can't go around chopping down other people's hedges without permission.
I suppose.
I suppose.
Yes, I suppose. Thank you.
All right.
So is that accent like common in maybe older folks, or was that just a gag?
I think, yeah, there would have been sort of like one guy when I was a kid, maybe. You know, the problem is I'm saying all of this. I've not lived in the country for about 20 years. So, yes, I think there would have been like the normally older person. But no,
especially the farmers.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a farmer thing. Yeah, you wouldn't sort of be hearing that accent if you're walking down the street.
Okay.
And I mean, I love that scene then when they have to take the other guy to translate for.
Yeah. Well, I also like the evolution of that. Of by the end, Nicholas could understand him.
Yeah.
Like I think that's one of my favorite things about this movie, and it's like what you guys were talking about. They're not mocking it at all because by the end of it, he has become one of these townspeople. He chooses to stay because he likes it.
Yeah.
Right. It's heartwarming and it's endearing and it makes me want to go live in a village in England somewhere.
But yeah, they don't change because he's arrived there. He changes because of how good they are. It's great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
But also, I think it's unusual that you've got a cop movie and it's about the straight arrow. It's not about a maverick. And it's.
But the straight arrow is the maverick in this town.
Yeah. I think there's so many clever things, but for what could be seen as a throwaway comedy, it's I think it's very clever.
Yeah, and I think it is one of the great British films because it doesn't do, oh, here's Stephen Fry, oh, here's Dame Judi Dench, oh, here's the establishment. It has a few big cameos. It gets them out of the way right at the beginning as the London folk, and then you're left with kind of Jim Broadbent.
I mean, Jim Broadbent he's not a nobody.
No, exactly. He is the one remaining person who I think is properly famous, properly establishment.
I mean, Edward Woodward was. He's in it, isn't he?
Not sure.
Isn't he the NWA guy?
He could be, but not on the same level. Not on the same level as Bill Nighy and Martin Freeman and the other two cameos that I'm not mentioning, in case Mandy noticed them, or we can ask her if she can remember who they might have been. So the Father Christmas who stabs Simon Pegg through the hand is Peter Jackson.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
And I mean,
a better one than that.
2 frames. Janine, his ex-girlfriend.
Who do you think Janine is?
Who has this long, emotional scene with him, except the point is you can't see her face.
She sounded familiar, but I didn't look up who she was.
She's a very famous Oscar winner.
Very famous.
Very famous. It's Cate Blanchett.
Really? Wow. That's awesome.
And supposedly she's in it because she loved Shaun of the Dead, and so she wanted to be in their next film.
And there's a whole thing, like, they thought it was even funnier that they could cast her as the person you don't see. And she then gave her fee to charity because she's like, I'm not really in this. It's fine.
And I don't know if it was Bob or Dave in that scene, is Joe Cornish.
Yes.
The Attack the
because
Block
Adam
director.
Buxton is in.
Dr. Buckles. That's one of my... He's in so few things, and I really like... He does a fantastic podcast. I love seeing him in this.
Because this is, I think, the other reason why it's a great British film, because it does have so many sort of British references and actors that we know from other stuff. So we can, you watch it, you're like, oh, that's Adam, that's this guy, or the woman from Dinner Ladies, or other people that we will recognise. But it's not Stephen Fry. It's not the one that we've put in to get the international recognition. And Bill Nighy is the closest I think they come to that, and he is just thrown away at the beginning.
And Martin Freeman.
Yes, yeah.
For me, I was recognizing, Stephen Merchant. And then I don't know actors' names. There's the Argus Filch.
Yep.
And the Hound.
Yeah.
Like, those are the ones that I noticed. And it's just because I know I don't actually know the actors' names for those guys. I just know their characters. And Jim Broadbent, I forgot that was his name. I know him from several things. But I could not have told you his name. But for me, it was kind of like, I recognize all these British actors because it's all the same. There's 7 actors in Britain.
Hey, no, these were the other 7 most.
Well, exactly. Yeah, this is the B-list
true.
7.
That's fair. That's fair.
Well, because you got Bill Bailey playing 2 parts on the front desk, because why wouldn't you have Bill Bailey? Again,
you can have him, you'd have him twice.
Okay. I couldn't tell if that was 2 different people or if it was the same person. But then they showed them both on the screen one time, and I was like, oh, I guess it really is 2 people. So really
amazing what they can do nowadays with camera tricks, man.
Okay. I feel better now.
But the one that I really want to call out is this film has got Olivia Colman in it. And it's got Olivia Colman for 2 hours making smutty remarks at everyone.
And this is one Doris Thatcher.
I could have given you the tour. I've been around the station a few times.
Must have hit the sign at some speed. Took the old top off.
I've had my top off on this layboy.
Tets. Told him several times, you shouldn't eat late at night.
I don't know, quite like a little midnight gobble.
Cox. Nice one, Doris.
Nothing like a bit of girl on girl.
You don't mind a bit of man power, do you, Doris?
Oh, dirty bastard.
It's a perfect film because of that.
It's fantastic.
I love the idea of people people who haven't necessarily seen her before and seen her in The Crown and The Favourite, and then going and watching this.
And Broadchurch.
In this.
Yeah, I've seen her. Broadchurch was the first thing I saw her in, and so I'm used to her being much more serious. But then I watched
something else.
Fleabag.
Okay,
Fleabag. She was in Fleabag. So her character there was much more similar to this. But when I think of her, I think of Broadchurch and The Crown and the very, very serious business acting, right? And then you get Always Time for a Little Girl on Girl. Right. She's amazing. She's incredible.
And she brings me back round to the accent conversation, because one of the things I think of when I think of this film is her turning around and with wide eyes going,
What makes you think it was murder?
and it's so beautifully delivered. All this shouting and him going on about it, and then she's still not buying it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real sort of Mr. Fraudle type moment.
Yeah.
Mm.
I can definitely lean into the accent there.
Love it.
Yeah. So I think it's safe to say we all love this movie.
Yeah, it's all right.
It is a great film. It's surprising how good it is on top of Shaun of the Dead. Like, Shaun of the Dead is a good film.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just such a step up.
Yeah, I think maybe it was a mistake. I saw this before I saw Shaun of the Dead, so I've never been that bothered by it. I think it's fine. It has good bits.
Yeah.
The cinematography I thought was great. The way they but cut from scene to scene. And it was very much that like Michael Bay action thing sometimes, but also sometimes it was just, there was one in particular, and I can't remember specifically what it was, but I remember thinking, wow, that was really clever. And I think it was Simon Pegg's character was like flopping down in the chair in his flat, and then like it transitioned to him flopping down in a chair as the cop. Or something very similar like that.
Okay.
And they did that kind of thing a couple different times where the transition was just, they did the same action.
Yeah, there's a bit
in both like two completely or not related scenes. And I enjoy that kind of filmmaking.
I think it was the guy in the mansion.
Yeah, George Merchant.
He gets hit in the head, and as he falls, I think Nicholas flops down into his chair.
Yes.
I remember thinking that was really
Absolutely.
good.
And then I think he says something like, which of these two films, well, which do you think I prefer? Well, which one first? It's like, you got to be pulling my leg. Cut to them dragging the body.
Yeah.
by the leg.
There's just so much thought has gone into it.
And that is Edgar Wright's style all over. But it's just, you can see him being really confident with it.
Yeah, it was interesting watching Shaun of the Dead again this morning, because I had assumed all of the like smash cuts and choppy editing was because of the action film homage, but actually there's quite a bit of that in Shaun of the Dead as well.
Yeah, his style.
But I really liked it with quite mundane things like watering the peace lily and like really choppy cuts when they were doing the paperwork to make it seem really dramatic.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And even, the really fast cuts of get a beer out, go to the toilet, miss the toilet, flush the toilet, and then sit down. Why are you doing flashy cinematography for Drunken Night Out?
Has this got any bit where it's to music? I mean, I know there's music, but like in the Shaun of the Dead where they are hitting the zombie landlord with the pool cues to Queen. And then Baby Driver, obviously, he does lots of different things to the music. I was trying to think. I
think there was a lot of music in this because I have subtitles on when I watch, and there were several instances where it would specifically tell me the name of the song that was playing.
Yeah,
none of them were songs I'm familiar with though, because pop culturally deprived.
there was a lot of music, but one thing I don't think there were any sort of actions that was to the time of the music.
No, that Baby Driver style. Yeah, no, not in this.
Okay.
It worked. It just, so much of it works so well. You mentioning about being pop culture deprived. Did you feel a kinship with Nicholas with the whole? You haven't seen Point Break. You haven't seen Bad Boys 2.
Yes, very much so.
That's how you should be. You need to get that cut of him saying that and put that at the beginning.
Yeah, and Andy is telling them, you've watched way too many movies. And Danny's like, no, he hasn't. That's me. One
thing was with them, which definitely would not have, it wouldn't have occurred to me the first time around because it wasn't an issue. But when there's the big reveal and Danny's dad then is explaining why, and he said after his wife died, he said that's when he decided he was going to make Sanford great again. And I was just like, oh my God, MAGA.
Oh,
God. And
I think my brain just doesn't hear those words anymore.
But it is, because it's and it's not just America, it's the same here now as well with Brexit and what have you. And it completely fits, it's them wanting to go back to this better time better time in inverted commas, but while ignoring like the damage that is done to other people by being in that, and the othering of anyone who doesn't then fit with their plan. I was kind of like, oh, deep, unintentionally deep, but deep.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yes, I heard that as well. I was like, oh, that's an interesting one. And it wasn't planned as being that interesting at the time.
No, not.
But it's lasted, isn't it?
Yeah. And also, I think the fact because he's wearing like a Victorian Bobby's outfit, isn't he?
Yes, which he has hanging up in his office.
Yeah.
I saw it in the background in an earlier shot. I'm like, what is that in the background? Because there's nothing on by accident here.
No.
Everything is on purpose. I had never noticed before the picture of young Danny and the mum and him. They're in the same cowboy outfits they wear to the fair. And it's like, oh, I'd never picked up that it's exactly the same. He is absolutely trying to retain that moment. And so I saw this thing in the background. Well, that must mean something, but I didn't know what it was. And then he shows up in the old style cloak. Great. It's just brilliant.
There's a lot of details that I think I will pick up on when I watch it again. And I will absolutely watch this one again.
Yeah, thoroughly recommend it.
But it's too much to pick up on your first watch. And I think had I tried to take notes, I would have missed even more.
Yeah, no, I think you're better off just
stuff would be happening on the screen while I was looking down and typing.
Yeah.
So I'm glad, Matthew, you kind of warned me that this might be one to immerse myself in. And I suggested that to Joseph, and he said, oh, yeah, you should probably not take notes. And so I just put my laptop down and I watched it, and I'm really glad I did. So it's great.
So this, I don't know if you've mentioned this, Matthew, but this is a film that for some reason, probably because it's watchability, is repeated incessantly on ITV. ITV2 or something. It's one of our channels.
Freeview channels, yeah. Yeah,
it's one of our channels. And so it's almost to the point that you turn it on and you expect it to be on there. And because of that, my dad has watched this film a lot.
Okay.
However, last time I went home, this is my parents' story that I always leverage into when I'm talking to you guys. Normally it's mum, this is dad. So last time I went home, I don't know, a month or so ago, we watched this because I wanted, I said, oh, let's watch this because I'm prepared. And we're watching it, and lovely, lovely, lovely. And then it gets to the part where Angel drives back off to London in Danny's car and what have you. And then obviously the film keeps going. And my dad's just like, what the hell? Because he has fallen asleep every time he's watched this. And he thought that's when it finished. He knew nothing about the shootout.
He thought that was just it. He just goes home.
Model Village, none of it.
That's amazing.
Love it. That's nice. And yeah, I can see it because that's what you do. You watch a film at night, you fall asleep in front of it.
Yep.
Done. Yeah.
And it does have about 4 endings.
Yes. I think generally they work.
Oh yeah.
But there is the coda at the end that is possibly not necessary. It's nice to see life continues and he's there and he's got his cottage and so on, but
I liked it.
Yeah, because that's where you see
I knew you would.
I mean, that's kind of his arc, isn't it? Because is that also where he's in the police station and taking the Mickey and?
Oh no, I mean they go into the grave and then they get a call and he says, "Punch that S."
Yeah.
Speed off.
Yeah. Have they ever talked about doing a sequel?
Not that I've seen.
Well, because it's part of the Cornetto trilogy. I suppose there's the third one.
Which one's the third one?
Well Done.
Oh.
We're not doing it. Don't worry.
Okay. Oh, you're not? Okay.
It's very average.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I would just like to see more of Nicholas Angel in A Small Town.
Yeah, that is,
honestly,
it's a very different character in the world.
Particularly that bit at the end, because I think when she comes on the radio, she calls him Chief, or Danny calls him. Someone calls him Chief, and it's just,
oh really?
Oh, has he taken over? Oh, that would be nice. I'd like to see that.
Which would make sense, really. I mean, out of any of them to be the leader there.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So I do have a question for both of you. What's your perfect Sunday?
Well, my perfect Sunday is starting with a bit of a lie-in. I don't know. Yeah, sleeping in, breakfast,
Oh,
video games.
yeah, American breakfast as well.
You do
Yes.
breakfast very well.
Yeah, a nice big breakfast, and then just video games or movies or something where I don't have to go outside where the bugs live. That's my perfect Sunday.
But that is a great moment in the thing, and it's typical of their comedy of. He says, "Oh, I'll handle the press," as though we're not giving a statement. But he actually wants to tell him what his perfect Sunday is, and he knows what the answer is. He just gives the answer.
But the fact that they do it multiple times.
Yeah.
Firstly, it's Messenger asking it, and then it's when it's the proper press. I don't know what that character's called, actually. The other, I don't know, is he sergeant?
I think he was a sergeant, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Probably. But I'm not seeing him on the list. Not Doris. That was Olivia Colman. He's
Sergeant
also
one
Tony
of
Fisher.
Yeah, and he's one of those actors that kind of pops up in things, but I couldn't tell you what.
Minor roles in Game of Thrones, according to this.
Mm.
There's a few of them who were in Game of Thrones in this.
Yeah, wasn't everyone in Game of Thrones?
Oh.
So.
Well, there's that.
Yeah, and also it's, well, actually, I've only just thought it's a callback as well, isn't it, to Shaun of the Dead?
Remind me, having not seen it for a little while?
Well, at the end, it's Sunday, and what are they going to do? They're going to go to the pub, and they're going to put on a roast, and then watch something on TV.
So there's two bits of this that I think are really, really clever, that are exceptionally good, that we've not mentioned.
Okay.
So I'm going to mention them. The first is the use of the Power of Grayskull line. Like, it works the first time. Danny saying, "By the power of Grayskull," because he's clearly, of the age to have watched the He-Man cartoons, to have been into it, and now to be referencing it as well. Absolutely works. It's great.
By the power of Grayskull.
The fact they repeat the line, but it's then Nicholas Angel using it, who may or may not have watched the He-Man cartoon. Probably did, because again, right sort of age for it, so gets the reference. But when you look at the two scenes, one is Danny going into a world that is filled with guns and action and bombs, which is what he wants to be a part of and he's not a part of. And the other is Nicholas going into a world of DVDs and films and relaxing and not being part of the Force, which is what he wants to be part of and doesn't know.
By the power of Grayskull.
It's really clever to find a sort of comic way that serves the plot of these two characters finally getting to experience something they've wanted but not had before.
Yeah.
Great.
And it's a development in Nicholas's character as well, isn't it? Because even if he did watch He-Man when he was younger, he definitely wouldn't have been quoting.
No. Yeah.
And so that impact that Danny's had on him.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'd ever thought about it before until watching this time going, oh, that's a really clever way to link them with a bit of comedy, but to say these two scenes have a parallel between them. Wonderful. I love it. The other one is just a funny line. And it's one of the most perfect funny lines ever.
Yeah, you want to be a big cop in a small town? Off up the model village.
And the fact we've had shots of and signs for the model village all the way through. And then it's just big cop in a small town is such a standard line for a film of this type. But because they got a model village, they can take it to the nth degree.
And setting up then for the model village. There's so many of those.
And then it delivers.
And it's, there's the Notebook, that your life will be saved by the Notebook.
And
with
the ketchup.
With the ketchup, the ketchup in the pub, and then later on. I heard on an interview that they spent I think they revised the script a number of times, and it was a few years, and you can just see it. And supposedly 30-something action films are referenced.
Amazing.
So they just sat down and watched tons of them before writing it.
Oh, wow. I picked up on Point Break and Death.
Yeah. Same.
But when they get to the model village and you get that shot of the car flying over it, which is just beautiful and hilarious. And then he's holding the ginger nut captive, but the ginger nut bites him and runs away. And he ends up with one of the most graphically violent moments in any film, where you end up with the church steeple through his neck, through his jaw.
Yeah.
It's quite strong for a film of this sort.
I know Tim Messenger's death really was...
Yes.
That one was a bit much. I kind of look away from the screen when he's staggering around.
But to have Timothy Dalton still talking
and about ice cream,
with the obsession this film has with ice cream.
No, Dalton's perfect in that role as well.
Absolutely,
the kind of sleaziness of it, and
I love how they've leaned into how sinister he is.
I'm a slasher, and I must be stopped.
You're a what?
A slasher of prices. Just kidding. I'm Simon Skinner. I run the local supermarché. Drop in and see me sometime. My discounts are criminal. Catch me later! All too many have defected to the big megamart in Buford Abbey. May their heads be struck from their shoulders for such disloyalty. Nonsense. I'm sure if we bashed your head in, all sorts of secrets would come tumbling out.
And all the references on his car radio, and just beautifully done.
And somehow they've got a James Bond in here, doing stuff. Mandy, Timothy Dalton was James Bond for a couple of films.
Yes, he was.
Before he was the one they wanted to take over from Sean Connery, but he thought he was too young, so he took over from Roger Moore. Okay. And then he was supposed to do more films, but there was a whole legal thing, and then it went to Pierce Brosnan.
It's a good Bond, though. Like gritty. Quite a bit like Craig, actually.
Okay.
Angry Bond.
But he has the other thing I always think of with this film, which is that great shot when he allows them to leave the shop and he turns to them with a grin, and he's got the photo behind him of him grinning as well.
Of him grinning, yeah.
It doesn't need to be there. It's a throwaway thing, but it's so funny on screen.
Yes.
And he's so evil with all of his references, and
I bet if we bashed your head in, all sorts of things would come tumbling out. Like, who says that? Who says that?
All right. Is there anything else that we haven't discussed about this one that we should?
Other than me just listing all of the funny things, no. One thing that is obviously very important to me, and that someday, Matthew, is the Romeo and Juliet. Baz Luhrmann and the Dancing to Love Fall. I just...
they're thinking of this, so happy.
It's the fact that it's not just Romeo and Juliet, it's Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And the kiss she gives him when he's supposed to be dead, but goes back for a second kiss. It's so
Wait, is this movie the reason you refused to watch that version of Romeo and Juliet?
Well, I don't. I only refuse because Laura wants me to, just to be clear.
Oh, okay.
I haven't watched it because it's Romeo and Juliet. It's not a great story.
Not Romeo and Juliet, it's Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet.
And I didn't like Moulin Rouge.
Oh, that still hurts my heart.
And The Great Gatsby is only good for the first half of the movie. Anyway. That's the... it just makes me think of other bits that are so good. The fact they're so excited that they had this person who was a cadaver on Prime Suspect and an extra on Straw Dogs. And that's exactly the sort of small town thing. In Godalming, we're so excited because the memorial park is named after the signalman on the Titanic, who was the first one to radio about sinking and so on. Not a significant thing, but someone who's recorded in history. He is Godalming's famous son. Yeah, it's either that or the fact we're the first place in the UK that got streetlights, electric streetlights.
Ooh.
That's, why we're famous. And it's exactly what they do in this film. They're like, he was an extra on Straw Dogs. Oh. Mandy, I'm surprised you haven't talked about the thing from Point Break that they set up in this and then do in this.
It was one of my favorite moments.
I did think it would be.
But it absolutely was. Like, I love the way they kept talking about it. And then I was like, as soon as he picked up the gun and started pointing it at his dad, I was like, oh, he's going to do the thing. And then he did the thing, and it was completely unironically.
Yeah.
And it was so... wholesome.
Mm.
It's the best word I can think of. It was great. Yeah. And to have it be Nick Frost who did it, it worked so well.
Yeah.
Friendship anger bullets.
Yes. I had forgotten about that, actually.
But that is, in some ways, the reason we watched Point Break.
Oh, really?
I wanted to make sure you got that reference. Yeah.
I wouldn't have, absolutely. Like, there would have been a lot of things in this that I didn't. But I am glad I watched Point Break first. Like, really glad.
And, you know, more Keanu is better than less Keanu, so.
Absolutely.
Okay. Have we covered everyone's lists?
One thing I'm just checking with this format is, are you going to ask me for film recommendations?
I wasn't planning to, but if there is something you want to recommend or anything you want to plug.
No, just some recommendations. Well, I was thinking about Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet.
I love you, Laura.
And My Best Friend's Wedding.
Let's go and watch High...
Oh, I love you. Oh, my God.
So justice
this is amazing. I love it.
Hashtag justice for MBFW.
Yes.
Because Josie otherwise would kill me.
Or we could go and watch High School Musical, which is a much better version of Romeo and Juliet.
You've not seen it.
Why don't
How
we
could
just
you know?
watch...
I've seen Romeo and Juliet in a number of different forms.
There's guns.
Okay, guns doth not a different film make.
It's Leonardo DiCaprio.
It is such a 90s cultural touchstone that I'm surprised you don't
90s.
watch it just for that reason.
No, I don't want to watch it because you want me to watch it.
Friendship, Matthew, friendship. But yeah, so I'm not saying you'll still enjoy it, but I think you'll find it interesting. Whereas I think you would actually enjoy My Best Friend's Wedding.
Sure. Does it have Keanu Reeves in it?
Yes.
Or Tilda Swinton or Alison Janney? Then I would watch it.
They're all in it.
I love that your recommendations are for Matthew and not for me. That's amazing.
So one thing I was thinking that is, it's sort of a very British comedy, is Keeping Mum, which I don't know if, Matthew, if you've seen it.
The name's not ringing a bell.
We've got Dame Maggie Smith, Rowan Atkinson, Kirsten Scott Thomas. It's quite gentle comedy, but it's also very British. And with a twist.
I feel like I have. But I can't remember anything about it. It feels like a sort of, Channel 4
Sunday
random film. Yeah. Mandy, have you seen Bad Boys 1?
No.
Okay.
I was actually wondering, do you need to see Bad Boys 1 to see Bad Boys 2? Because Nicholas Angel obviously hasn't, but it's weird to start in the middle of a franchise. Not that we've ever done that before here on Pop Culturally Deprived.
I would be interested in the discussion of which film is better. Because Bad Boys 2 does do some things better than Bad Boys 1, but Bad Boys 1 is very good in and of itself.
I thought it was just general accepted that Bad Boys 2 was good, and that's why that's the one people talk about.
I'm worried about how the films would come across in a modern era. I am not sure they will have aged as well as others.
There's just been a new one, hasn't there? For Life?
Yes.
Which I've not seen.
Oh.
I've not seen. No. Okay.
Okay. Well, speaking of movies I haven't seen, what is next, Matthew? Star Trek Nemesis.
Star Trek Nemesis is next.
It's great working with pros.
I did remember to look it up.
Yeah, if you knew, why are you asking me? Hey, that's entrapment. You have to tell me.
I did tell you.
Yes, we are finishing off the Star Trek core franchise with Nemesis that will explain all the stuff in Picard that you didn't understand.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay. I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to learn anything new from Nemesis, but I also feel like I need to close it out.
Yeah,
I need to watch it because we watched all the other ones. But I am firmly entrenched in the Star Trek world right now because we are watching Discovery every week. We've started watching Lower Decks, which is amazing.
Okay.
Is there anything that we want to hear from people this week, Matthew?
I think we should hear from people this week their best attempts at the Somerset accent. Come and talk to me about the ways you would boil them, mash them, or stick them in a stew with your potatoes.
What we need's a few good taters.
What's taters, precious? What's taters, eh?
Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Okay. Well, if you would like to do that, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Eloquent Gushing. Or you can send an email to podcast@eloquentgushing.com. Or you can even leave us an audio message of your best Somerset accent at speakpipe.com/eloquentgushing. I am Mandy Kay, and you can find me on Twitter at Mandy Kay.
Laura, is there anything you want to plug at the end? Whether it's yourself, whether it's your company, things?
No.
Okay.
Well, I'm on Twitter, Laura, at Laura Geeks Out. So yes, please come say hello.
Well worth it, particularly because you've been doing some fun watch-alongs.
Yes.
Or live tweets,
that's a
rather.
good thing. That's a good thing to plug. I am about 50 episodes behind on PCD because there are certain films I want to watch because I have found out I am as pulp culturally deprived as Mandy with certain things. So yeah, there's lots of particularly old films I've never watched. So yes, when I'm watching them and catching up, I am doing a tweet along. So yes, come and join for that.
And you got about 2 tweets into watching The Godfather and still haven't.
Yeah, well, to be fair, this is now going to be my 4th attempt to watch The Godfather. To be fair, I got 2 tweets in because Biden was announced, and I thought, you know what, that's probably more important for me to focus on than this 50-year-old film or whatever it is.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I was going to ask, have you gotten to The Godfather yet? Because I've seen you several times say, I was going to start it, but I don't have enough time to watch this long movie. I was going to do it, but no, I'm doing this other one instead.
Yeah, I'm literally 5 minutes in.
Love it.
Okay. All right.
Well worth a follow. I thoroughly recommend. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming on with Hot Fuzz.
It's been a delight. Thank you.
Excellent. And I haven't even got... I said I was going to go all about Supergrass, and I haven't. Supergrass are wonderful. Supergrass did the song Caught by the Fuzz. Which is the other thing I think about with this film, which plays out over the end credits. Because Supergrass was... Okay. That CD was like the first CD I bought when I got a CD player.
Oh, you're one of those boys, okay.
I'm not sure what that means. I do like Supergrass a lot. I did buy all their albums. Is that indicative of something?
That's
what have I missed? I was not a floppy-haired, hat-wearing mod type. I was a black t-shirt Metallica listening type, but Supergrass also tickled a lot of itches of, good fun music.
Mm-hmm.
But you did have floppy hair, didn't you?
I do, yes, and did have floppy hair, yes. There's no getting away from floppy hair, but not in the same sort of
So you were just missing the hat, that was it?
Yeah, basically.
All right.
Me and Ocean Colour Scene. You can find me on Twitter at Matthew Vose. And don't forget, Pop Culture Deprived is completely funded by our lovely listeners through Patreon. You can get access to exclusive shows, early access to shows, all sorts of bonus content, and physical merch if you go and support us, which does obviously support us. It helps us to develop the shows and keep bringing out the podcasts that you love. So if you want to find out more, go to patreon.com/eloquentgushing.
Yeah, pay your creators.
Yes. Thank you, Laura. We will be back next week with another episode where we are going to talk about Star Trek Nemesis. So until then, I am Mandy Kay.
And have you ever fired 2 guns whilst jumping through the air?
Nope.
No comment.
Pop Culturally Deprived is an Eloquent Gushing production. For more information, go to eloquentgushing.com or find us on Twitter at eloquentgushing.